हमारे पास इस टाइम पर एक लीगल एक्सपर्ट जर्मनी से मौजूद हैं जो फैकल्टी मेंबर है फ्रेडरिक शिलर यूनिवर्सिटी के और ग्लोबल जो लेजिस्लेटिव ऑर्डर है उसको जो है वो देखते हैं. Arturo, thank you very much for taking out the time for joining us. I just wanted to ask, in terms of the recognition for Moscow, and when they say that we recognize the Taliban's government, the rest of the governments do sort of have an understanding by calling it a de facto governance system, but do not recognize it. What sort of legislative barrier does that create, or an anomaly within the larger global political realm?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. In the context of the Taliban government, we have to remember that this government was already in place before the U.S. illegal war under international law. Mm-hmm. And Russia was one of the countries that never ceased to have a working embassy in the ground of Kabul. So for the matter, what Russia is doing now is just recognizing the reality on the ground on a legal basis. So they never ceased to have contact with the government of the Taliban back in the day, then with the government of the transition or the post-Taliban government, and now they are doing that officially. And the implications of this move are mostly internal. Of course, Moscow wants to give a signal to the world. And of course, this is in a context of Iran war with Israel, which has a boundary with Afghanistan. Yeah. So what Russia is doing is officializing the legal relationship that they already had with the government of the Taliban. And like Lavrov said, the foreign ministry of Russia, in terms of economic and exchange relationships. So this move is going to give the national legal frame for the Russian government to deal officially and to make agreements mostly on commerce and anti-drug and anti-terrorism activities with the government of Kabul.
But when we talk about this, I mean, then this only means, from what I understand, what he's saying is that this legal framework only provides space and vacuum for Russian authorities to have that kind of relationship. It does not mean anything in the larger sphere of our understanding in the global matters as well. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, in a sense. Actually, Russia is not the only one doing this. Actually, China and some other nations in of the East have function embassies. Although they don't recognize the Taliban government officially, they still have function embassies on the ground. And actually, also some important governments of the West are trying to get near to the government of the Taliban, especially the place where I'm living in Germany. We have to remind that the first refugee crisis that went from this area of the world to Europe was an Afghan wave after the illegal war from the United States. So this was a big implication from Germany. And now the foreign minister of Germany is seeking contact with the Taliban government so they will agree to expatriate the so-called criminal people from Afghanistan living in Germany. So because they had to stop the expatriation process as the Taliban arrived in power. And now governments like Germany and probably other ones in Europe will follow, are seeking this legal official recognition, or at least under the table recognition. So they will be able also, like Russia, to formalize legal activities and international...
So Arturo, I just want to interrupt over here because we're short on time, but I want to ask this question, is because a larger context of this obviously revolves around the counterterrorism and the economic part of how to deal with the Afghan Taliban. Does this actually pose still a barrier for being unrecognized by other countries or not, particularly the economic part?
Well, it's an economic move, of course. Like I said, they want to officialize commerce relationship with the Taliban. And at the same time, they want to give a signal to other countries to be open to do this and just to acknowledge the facts on the ground, that the Taliban are holding indeed the power and they're still in charge of a country which is strategically important, not only for the commerce, but also in terms of diplomacy, because it's a crossways to a lot of economies and the access from Russia or to Russia to the east, to the far east, and especially to Iran. So I think Russia is moving in these two ways: officially working as an illegal national frame, but also trying to invite some other countries to do the same.
Should I understand this by saying that the Afghan banks would now be able to transact only with Russia and not anyone else?
Well, it's as we have to also remember that the UN Security Council put on some strict sanctions to Afghanistan in terms of commerce after the takeover of the Taliban when the American troops left over, just as well as Iran is suffering under this strict sanction. So for the Afghan government, there is a common interest to participate in this new road or new trade road that we could open between Russia and Asia and also to Iran as a connecting factor.
Thank you very much, Arturo. Thank you for your time and this detailed explanation.